Hello and welcome to your Security Boost podcast, in which we demystify security and simplify protection for your personal and business valuable assets. I am Yota Nikolaidou, your hostess. Let's get started. Hey there, I hope you're having a fantastic day and thank you so much for tuning in. So today we are going to talk about...
Before we go on to implementation of the fines, we have another question from Mr. Christoforidis, who says, what kind of data is considered as private and their personnel lists? He handles personnel lists that have similar names. So, and he gives an example, and I'd say that this is an example. Andreas Andreu. So he needs to use their ID number. Is there a problem sending a list with an ID number?
It depends where he sends it. So how they will use it, what is the other party who is receiving it, who has access to that information when they receive it. So it's a whole, we call it data map in security, and
Yes.
It's part of the implementation of GDPR. We make a plan and we see what are the paths of data and who has, all this information, where they are stored, where they travel, who has access to it, how they have access to it, how they destroy them, how they, all this, how they transfer them, all this information. So one important issue with that is that data, and it's not mentioned in the regulation. So personal data, let's start with that.
Yes.
Personal data is your name, your surname, your date of birth, your email address, your phone address, your phone number, your personal address, all this kind of information. Now, your identity as well, your identity number, your social insurance number, all this information. And you have to keep them if you have employees. But the whole thing is how you are, what is the way you protect them? What is the way you behave in relation to that data? Now, with data, there is one important thing that is not mentioned in the regulation, but every security expert who is going to get you compliant has to have this in mind, and that is how the data are correlated and connected. And that is why I said as well that cyber attacks and breaches are going to define your GDPR compliance, apart from the complaints of a non-satisfied user or client.
Yes.
So if these data are not protected properly and there are correlations with them, let's say an example to make it simple.
Yes.
Let's say that I call to a telecommunication company and I say my name. It's not my name, I'm a hacker, I'm a criminal. I say my name and I say I live to this address because I have collected this information, which are private, and I want them to give me a specific number or give me access to something. Mostly these employees have not the knowledge how to identify that this is the right person or not. They request information which are publicly announced. And you have to be aware that 2 pieces of information about us are enough to initiate an identity theft. And I know it sounds scary, so it might be your email and your phone number. It might be your name and your ID. It might be your name and your date of birth, which is, for example, we are on social media and most people write their date of birth. And I had a case that a lady asked me, okay, I do ask for the date of birth, but I don't ask the year. And I said, you have to understand that data are correlated. And someone who is analyzing data, which is part of the criminal, the qualifications of the criminal mind, apparently they do have these qualifications, is that they can find connections where a normal person we cannot find. So let's say that you don't have on your Facebook account your year of birth, but you are connected to your to the
you've got a wrong one. even.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you're connected with your family, you are connected with the people you went to high school together, so they can find from another profile that the year of birth, it's 18 years after you got out of school. So
Yes.
they can find that information.
Yes.
And that is why I say every information is correlated, and we have to be careful. And there is also one thing with consent which is essential. We ask as much data as we need from people, not more, not less. So if I need to know that you are over 18 to offer you a service, I cannot ask your date of birth. I can say, please tick that you are over 18 years old. That's enough.
Yes. Now, the implementation penalties, yes, I've gone over that. The implementation we see in Cyprus rarely happens, so it doesn't really matter what it is. Even if it's, for example, let me take an environmental issue, we have to increase our levels of conservation and not put our plastic into landfill. We see that this just doesn't happen. We receive a fine, very high fines as a country. What are the fines that can be implemented for lack of GDPR for Cyprus, not for individual countries, if Cyprus is not compliant, or is there no such thing?
There is a such thing. And the thing is that there is a difference between a regulation and a direction. So if they give you guidelines how to implement something, and they don't force you as a country to implement it, you can, you have to take it to your to the parliament to be voted.
Yes.
But if it's something that is enforced by the EU, like for example the fact that based on the Cyprus law, we are all of us are obliged to vote for the president election.
Right.
But based on the EU, we have the right. But if we don't want to if we want to go to vote,
yes.
it's
so
okay.
There's a difference between obviously the country laws and the EU laws.
Yes.
Is GDPR an EU law?
Yes, and it has to be followed by all countries with no excuse, and that is why they have taken it so seriously that it's not something that Cyprus is going to pay a fine and it will be fine. And that is why they have also the data commissioner. They are taking it seriously.
So we will be fined.
Of course.
Who is going to be fined? The country will be fined if companies are not compliant, or if the country and the government organizations are not compliant, and semi-government organizations.
All of them will be fined. So imagine if the fine is that amount for businesses, imagine what will be for the country. Obviously, the country at this stage, and no country can check that everyone is compliant. But as I said, when they get to the point that there is a breach, the company will be fined. Government is not going to take responsibility for the company because it's a private organization.
Yes.
It's not.
What happens if it's a government organization or a semi-government organization?
We will stay in history, I believe. It's not good, but yes, government has to be responsible as well with people's data, because they have all of our data, really. So
yes,
they have to update their systems. They have to take seriously the GDPR implementation. They have to do GDPR implementation.
Do you believe that all government organizations are now GDPR compliant? Or it's difficult for you to...
It's not easy to... I can speculate based on what I see, but it's completely... I cannot say with certainty that... I'm sure there are
some holes,
because it's government. It has so much information about people that it's gonna take a lot of time to get compliant, and they have to be on a specific direction to do it right. So it will take time, even for small companies, depending on the data you deal with.
Yes. And not only the understanding of what actually needed to be done.
Yeah.
I think that people must be also quite fearful about the amount that it'll cost to get someone to come in and actually have a look at your systems and do it. Is it a prohibitive amount?
No. Let me clarify something. I just mentioned the fines. I just mentioned that attacks happen every day, and that the average cost of an attack is $100,000.
Yes.
So there is no way for, especially for small and medium-sized companies in Cyprus, to have a higher amount for their GDPR compliance. Now, you have to be also aware about something very specific.
Yes.
You might get offers, and I know many people who get offers for GDPR compliance which are not valid. So if you deal with sensitive data, the amount of, and you have many people or you have many people affected, the amount will be different, because also the work that needs to be done. So your threat level is going to define the price. If you are a hospital, or if you are, government holding so much sensitive data like criminal records and this kind of stuff, the amount will be higher than a local company which is doing, I don't know, something very specific, like a painting shop.
Yes.
It's completely different, because the amount of data that these two entities have on their list, it's not the same, and it doesn't have the same impact on people.
Right.
So any price that is going to be given to you, you have to know who is the person who is giving it to you, obviously.
Yes.
If it's going to do something which is going to give you the right solution to GDPR compliance, and at the same time you have to know that you have to ask for what they are covering and what is their price based on.
There's so many charlatans. How does one actually know who is the right person to find? Right. We found you, but how else would one be able to find somebody?
That's a good question, and I have a whole article about how to choose the right person.
Yes.
But the most important
article on your Facebook page.
It's on
LinkedIn.
It's on LinkedIn and on my website.
On your website, and that is
yotanikolaidou.com.
That's
we go. YIOTA
with a C.
Yes, Yota with Y, Nikolaidou with C, and I have many articles and podcasts which are free for anyone to go through and understand basic things about security.
That's a huge gift. So yotanikolaidou.com, so that you can understand what we need to. So what do we need to do to look out for the right person?
You have to check their credentials. So data experts do not appear from anywhere.
No.
So it's not something that someone is going to say, I am an expert to it. You can see their profile and see that these people have relevant experience and they have dealt with data. So, for example, I'm coming from a background where sensitive data like government data, or we call them safety critical data, because human lives might die, or because governments hold this data very protectively because they can damage their collaboration with other countries, or they have something which is on their country benefit. So these the people who know and understand data are the people who can get you GDPR compliant.
Right.
And I'm not talking, as I said, there is the legal part and there is the implementation part. One thing that you should be looking for is the impact of data. So if the person who is going to do the GDPR compliance does not understand the impact of data, of any type of data, and the correlations between data, then it's not the right person to do your compliance. Because you don't want, they might do something, they might get you the legal part, which is mostly what is happening in Cyprus, but the implementation part, you will get a fine because you will go to a court, and that is because you will get a breach, you will get a cyber attack, and you have to prove that you have done things.
Right.
With a legal paper only, it's not going to be enough.
No.
I cannot wait to hear your comments, so leave them below or head to yotanikolaidou.com and let's continue the conversation. You will find the link in the description of this episode. Have a great day. And until next Monday, stay safe.